every programmer will tell you that they are often programming with an eye towards something that they've always wanted to see. So sometimes I put in something because I'm like, I've always wanted to see that. And then I'm programming it so I can.
Hello, welcome to MovieTown, the revival cinema scene show. We are in New York at the Metrograph Cinema, and I'm joined by Edo Choi, a film programmer here. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
What would you say the Metrograph, either mission statement or place in New York cinema is?
So Metrograph launched in 2016, opened in 2016, and I remember really well. I was one among many people who were really we had a feverish anticipation for Metrograph to opening, and the ethos that they instilled that we're carrying on is one where there's no borders to within film history. We're not interested in maintaining any boundaries between genres, forms, sensibilities of taste. We want to be showing the high and the low. We want to be showing the avant-garde and the mainstream, a little bit of everything. And we want to present it in a way that is always surprising, unexpected, that shows the continuity across seemingly divergent works of art.
And because I think of just coming from the LA kind of art house revival scene, I think of New York for sure as a bit more connected to Lincoln Center Museum, Film Forum, like pretty hardcore cinephile. And Metrograph seems to be in a place kind of between that, where it's still a lot about seeing the film in a certain environment, and not just kind of checking off sort of the this national cinema or this filmmaker.
I mean, I think we still do things like Soul and Soil, the Ukrainian poetic cinema, and like the Naruse program, and this early Naruse Hoda to that program that's coming up. We still do this more, let's say, traditional repertory programming, but I think that in order to keep things interesting, you have to mix it up, and I think that, again, you're to your point, we're not just catering to, the nerds like me. Like, I'm a nerd, and I will go to, we're trying to create an atmosphere, a kind of...
That's both kind of a gateway and have...
I mean, and because the idea is to get people to take a chance on certain things. I mean, I think that one example of this is that we're doing this really exciting program right now called Memories of a Vietnamese Cinema. And that is, in a sense, a more traditional survey. It's 8 programs the classics from mostly the North Vietnamese cinema between 1959 to the early 90s. And these are really important films made within a system that was established in North Vietnam and continued after the unification of the country at the end of the Vietnam War. And that's a very kind of, again, sort of traditional framework for presenting this work. But what's exciting about it is that when you bring it to our audience, you're hopefully bringing in people who wouldn't normally see this kind of movie. And you're making it accessible to them, not just materially accessible, but accessible culturally, right? Like in a way that that makes them not feel like it's not for them.
Yeah,
right?
and
Because there's
it's
a lot
yeah,
of ways in which film culture can be isolationist and elitist,
yeah.
and we're trying not to, I'm not sure that any theater is 100% 24/7 successful at this, but we I think do a fairly good job of making film culture feel sexy and relevant and immediate.
And, I think that's an interesting place to kinda get into some of your upcoming series, The Memory Palace,
Yeah,
yes. I'm interested just, how kind of a conceptual series like this
yeah,
comes about. Like, does it start with one film that you see connections with to others? Like, yeah, just even take
yeah.
me
I
through.
mean, that it depends,
Yeah,
right? Thematic series at Metrograph are kind of our bread and butter.
okay.
So
In thematic versus, say, like, meaning versus, like, direct retrospective. Yeah,
yes,
okay.
or like a survey of a national cinema or of a genre, um, or a spotlight on a different uh kind of talent, right?
Yeah,
So like an actor or
right.
a production designer, a cinematographer. Um, so the thematic series is sort of that's the easiest thing for us to produce and turn around quickly. You you come up with an idea, or you reach into your uh, bag of ideas, which most practicing programmers I think are thinking about series all the time, and the connections between films, and they can be really fun, almost incidental connections, or they can be a little bit sort of more like richer thematic connections, and uh, and so we need, because of the volume of programming that Metrograph does, to actually have a lot of these in the pipeline,
Okay, yeah.
so to speak, at any given time. In the case of this series, this is an idea I've had and have been nurturing slowly for a long time,
Okay.
because I've always been interested in films that deal with memory, not so much films with flashbacks or films with uh, that are set in the past, because you could argue that all films
Right.
sort of deal with memory in some way. It's a medium that's so related to
Right.
how we remember things.
I mean, that's definitely one of the
Yeah,
first thoughts that came to mind is like,
yeah,
how do you like some people, yes, would say it's the Simba is the waking dream of memory
yeah,
or the
exactly.
expression of it.
Yeah,
But were there certain films that were like the North Star,
yeah,
if you will,
definitely.
of
So
it?
like it
Yeah.
starts from this idea that um I've been talking about with friends and other critics and programmers for years, that there is a distinct moment where film becomes aware of itself as a memory machine, and and a number of films start to emerge that deal with memory in a more self-conscious way, and are actually using narrative film, or sometimes just film itself, because there's some experimental films in this program and documentaries too, as a form that is akin to like the modernist novel, so
Yeah.
like akin to Proust or Virginia Woolf, or that where the filmmaker is working through their own personal memories, or an ancestral memory, like a memory connected to the culture that they were raised in, the milieu they were raised in, and so that is what this series is about. And that moment kind of arrives, I think, quite neatly, um, uh, in this wartime period, in the around the Second World War, and this has been written about by a lot of theorists of film. Gilles Deleuze has these two books, The Movement Image and The Time Image, and he says that the break between this movement image and time image, these concepts that he has, is in that inflection point of the war. It occurs around that time, and then there's a lot of filmmakers who embody this notion of the time image, and the time image is set apart from the movement image, is an image that's aware of itself as an image reflective of time. You know, whereas the movement image was more about that kinetic, immediate, sensual.
And so how many films are in this series with you all?
This series is massive because it's a lot of, you know, we do these thematic series as sort of tent poles to keep the theater busy and to attract a broader range of cinephiles. So not just the hardcore people who are looking for really rare work or work that's less well known, but we're trying to do stuff that has a fair amount of classics and films that
So that's
maybe
what these series
people are already aware of, but they
Okay,
want to see.
right.
And Memory Palace, even though it is a very personal series for me, it's an idea I've been thinking about for a long time. It is, I mean, it has the Magnificent Ambersons in it, and it has The Godfather. Part
it really
2 in
goes
it,
like across many genres.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
And so what are like the, you know, 2 or 3 films? I mean, is it Magnificent Ambersons or that kind of
Yeah, Ambersons is the kickoff
for you?
Yeah, for me. I think that's a really key moment in, I mean, of course, both Citizen Kane and Ambersons, and this has been like, again, plenty of much smarter people than and more significant people than I have like written about the kind of paradigm shift that occurs with Citizen Kane and Ambersons. But Ambersons, you know, Wells grew up in the Midwest, and he and was born in the early 20th century. So he didn't live to see what Ambersons depicts. But he knew the world intimately, and so I think adapting Tarkington's novel was also about Wells connecting with this milieu that he saw the last of before it vanished, and that's a very Proustian impulse.
You know, certainly with these, I mean, there were some titles, you know, like in the series that, you know, we're kind of talking about it. Like, as you said, this is more kind of the more well-known, you know, titles people would know. Like, I've certainly seen, you know, and knew many more titles in here, but there's still kind of like some on the edges that I don't know.
There are rarities. I always try to do that. I like to do that where if you have a big series that's going to have a lot of not mainstream, but mainstream art house films, you want to also sprinkle in some rarities and nuggets that make it more interesting and spicy.
And I'm wondering, like, for you, are those typically discovery films for you in the series?
No, I mean, in this case, no.
No,
Sometimes I mean, every programmer will tell you that they are often programming with an eye towards something that they've always wanted to see.
Right.
So, you know, sometimes I put in something because I'm like, I've always wanted to see that. And I'm programming it so I can. But a lot of times I mean, in this case, you know, I would say like some of the rarer things in here are like Chantal Akerman's Portrait of a Young Girl in Brussels at the end of the 60s, which has been restored relatively recently, had a lot of access issues around it, was sort of in rights hell because of the way that it was made for French television. And now it's newly accessible. MoMA just screened it as part of their big Chantal Akerman retrospective. So it's nice to keep that going, to show it again, and to give people another bite of the apple, because that is a really, really important Akerman film that has long been kind of only viewable in substandard pirated copies on the internet. And then like another rarer film in here is Alexei German's My Friend Ivan Lapshin, which is one of the greatest Russian movies from 1986, I think 84. And it was actually a favorite of Tarkovsky's. And Ivan Lapshin depicts this period in the 30s when there was still a great amount of optimism in this new society that they were building, and it has an immense amount of affection for these people that's tinged with sadness because the film is aware that being made in decades later what's going to happen with Stalin's Great Purge, and so it's this very kind of gallant movie about people who are living out a moment, unaware about what's about to come.
How long have you been a programmer, like in this film kind of revival art world?
I've been a programmer full-time now for 6 years.
6 years?
Yeah, but I've been programming for a much longer period than that, like since I was in college, which is about 17 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was that where you kind of had you had like a film bug before that? I mean, even growing up?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got into film pretty young.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was always very excited by movies from when I was small.
Where'd you grow up?
In the city.
Okay.
Yeah, I grew up on the Upper West Side.
Got it.
Yeah.
And so was your family, like, were they
weren't
moviegoers?
They weren't
like this, the Metrograph, type?
No. And as I'm sure you know, Metrograph wouldn't have existed.
Right.
And Metrograph it's a very contemporary kind of cinema, albeit one that has a real sense of the past.
Yeah.
And it built into it. But no, we were just. I think millennials are sort of the last generation of just true casual moviegoing.
Yeah.
So that was just something that we did
Right.
all the time.
Yeah.
And it's the home video era. It's the VHS era. So I watched a lot of films for the first time at home, like on a tube TV. Right. So yeah. And it's also like the era of like, James Bond movie marathons and horror movie marathons and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, or USA. What was the James Bond? When I was growing up, it was on one of I can't remember if it was on USA or TBS, but I watched it every summer. It would be on.
Yeah, I feel like it was TBS. Yeah. And I recorded before they released those VHS box sets with like all of them in like nice-ish VHS transfers. We recorded all of them.
Okay.
My mom and I.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just so into James Bond. So yeah.
When did you start kind of discovering movies for yourself, like outside of, kind of a casual family thing?
Yeah. I mean, the light bulb sort of went on as I got a little older. My parents thought I was ready for some more mature films and to introduce me to those films. So I forget whether it was my mom or my dad, but one of them showed me Goodfellas.
Okay.
Or thought it was the right time. I was like 11 or 12, and the Copacabana sequence with the long Steadicam shot, the one shot travel through the kitchen, and then when Henry is taking Karen on their first date, I became aware. I had this moment that I think a lot of people who fall in love with movies have, where I just was aware that there was a camera.
Okay.
Yeah, and that there was a guiding. There was not so much a voice, but there was a hand guiding the gaze.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was someone manipulating the scene so that I accessed it in this very particular way, and that had something to do with what they were trying to say about the story and the characters, um, but it was also just a purely kinetic and sensual sense of, I thought it was so beautiful, and I thought it was so romantic. I mean, it has this Phil Spector Crystals
Right.
song, "Then He Kissed Me," playing under it. And the combination of that sound cue with the Steadicam, this gliding Steadicam, and the way that Scorsese orchestrates the movement of all the extras, it was unforgettable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when did, or if ever, like, did you start finding the kind of revival repertory scene in New York, whether it was like Film Forum or Lincoln Center series or museums? Was that kind of a part of your
A
movie
little
going?
bit, a little bit. My parents were not that uh, embedded in the scene. I mean, really, this was the heyday of the video rental
Yeah.
store. So we had a great video. We weren't, again, my parents weren't so
Yeah.
into the scene.
But
So
they,
they
what
were
about
like
like,
kids
so
video
for you, it was
people,
more
but
like in your
yeah.
20s and stuff, finding that?
Yeah, I would say like once I got to, so I went away for high school and college,
Okay.
and it was in those years I would come back for holidays, and I started to discover the rep circuit.
Yeah.
And I kind of discovered it a theater at a time. So like Film Forum was very present. It was because it was a place we did go to occasionally, and then gradually I started to discover places like MoMA,
Yeah.
Anthology, uh, Film at Lincoln Center, which was then the Film Society of Lincoln Center, and then in college, I was at that point pretty aware of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what was your first programming? Was it like, did you kind of start as a part-time thing? How does that like work its way up?
So,
And what was your
well,
first role?
well, I was very fortunate, but it wasn't just fortunate. I learned through a family friend who was a little older than me about the University of Chicago's Film Society doc films.
Okay.
Or the full name of the group is the Documentary Film Group. And doc is a fairly kind of legendary college film society that has existed since in various iterations. It has antecedents going back to 1938. I think formally the group starts around the post-war. Like formally the name Documentary Film Group is like from like the mid-40s. And they're called Documentary Film Group, but actually their focus is not documentary. And at the time in the 30s and 40s, that the notion of documentary was looser. So like that name suggested things like that we wouldn't define as documentary today, like Eisenstein's films. And it as different generations of student took on the film society, it went through different its focus would shift. So in the early days, there was a real focus on kind of French classics, especially around certain actors who were very popular at the time, like Jean Gabin. And then it entered a period where it was very experimental and documentary focused, and they did some of the first screenings in Chicago of people like Brackage and
so you were at
Maya Deren.
You were at Chicago and kind of became part of this?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
but I learned about it before I got
Oh, okay.
there.
Yeah.
I learned about it and I applied to the school knowing that this
Okay. So this was
existed.
like a big,
Yeah. And so by the time, I was there in the late 2000s, and it was actually the year I arrived, or year after I arrived, it was celebrating its 75th anniversary. And Doc was such an established institution within University of Chicago that it had a theater that was, I mean, it's larger than Metrograph's theater. It was like a 300-seat theater with 35 millimeter reel-to-reel projection, and it was still entirely student and volunteer run. The programming was entirely determined by students and volunteers, undergraduates, graduates, just people in Chicago who were interested would come to programming meetings and propose series. And so I became the programming chair there for 2.5 years of my time at the university. Basically from the middle of my undergrad to the end, and even a few months after I left the university, I was the programming chair at Doc.
And then what about New York? What was kind of your start of your programming stuff here?
I moved back to the city, and I was doing some production, and but wanting to do programming, and I did some freelance. I did some freelance programming. I pitched things to some places, but really, it took me a few years before I was doing it in earnest again, and that's when I joined Maisels Documentary Center in Harlem, and I got an internship there. It was kind of mentored by Jessica Green, who's a wonderful freelance programmer and critic, and Jessica was the head programmer at Maisels at the time, and then I started doing some operations and projection stuff with Maisels, because from Doc I also was a trained projectionist, so I sort of ended up managing
the lost art you would get called upon.
Yeah, so I started to manage that end of things at Maisels, and then I would contribute some programming, and then eventually I managed the programming there. And then I got hired in 2019 at the Museum of the Moving Image to be the assistant curator of film, and that was the beginning of kind of my full-time career. Yeah.
And then how long you've been here at Metrograph?
I've been here now since February. Okay. So I just left the museum.
Yeah.
And I had been at the museum for 5 years.
And then what was
a little over
kind of the first film series, or even a singular film, that you feel like was kind of your, like, demarcates your start here at Metrograph?
Oh, well, when I arrived the March-April season, we do, as you know, we do our seasons bi-monthly. And so the March-April season was pretty well set. And Inge, our director of programming, did kindly kind of ask if I wanted to contribute something in March-April. And I said, no, I'll just take my time and really try to install some good programming for May-June. And the big series that I had actually already been working on when I was at the museum was this kind of monumental retrospective on Mikio Naruse, the great Japanese studio era director. He was the contemporary of Ozu and Mizoguchi. Naruse is one of my favorite filmmakers. I had been wanting to do this retrospective for a while. This year was the 120th anniversary of his birth, so it was a good timing. Also, his most kind of revered film, Floating Clouds, one of the great Japanese films, was just restored in 4K by Toho. So it made sense to do it now. There have been other Naruse programs happening around the country and around the world, and we became part of the circuit. It was a collaboration with Japan Society Uptown, and Alexander Fee, their film programmer, and I had already collaborated last year on a dual Japanese program, a retrospective of Hiroshi Shimizu, who's a little less well known than Naruse or Ozu, but is also a contemporary of theirs. So this is kind of an area of passionate interest for me.
Yeah. And I'm interested because, I've seen it, like you were saying, kind of on the circuit, like a film will get remastered, or a certain number of films will get remastered by a filmmaker, and it kind of then travels around the country and world in these series. Like, how does that?
Well, in
Like,
this case, only one film had been remastered. The rest of his films have not been restored, although they're starting to restore more of them, or complete some further restorations, I've heard. But we didn't even show the restoration of Floating Clouds. We showed a 35 millimeter print. The entire series was on film. The entire
but sometimes
series.
like these remasters jumpstart like the ideas or the films, kind of, do they get pitched by some of the
so that can happen. So sometimes there are restorations in the works by the rights holder, and the rights holder is the one who gets the retrospective going, and they bring the idea and the kind of menu to select from to venues, and that can happen, and it does happen. And venues then have, I think, usually they are given a amount of curatorial freedom to determine what's the right size or makeup for them. But in this case, this was a series that came from Alexander and I being passionate about Naruse's work, wanting to do it, and then the timing being right. And Toho and Janus Films, who controls the rights to a lot of the Naruse films, being excited about it. So it was motivated by our interest first.
And I know that era, I'm probably more, akin to kind of most filmmakers, where I know the Kurosawa and Ozu stuff, and even some of the Mizoguchi films kind of that Japanese era, a lot more.
Sure.
And so I'm wondering, like, what about Naruse's films kind of, jump out to you compared to them, and like which titles? I know you said Floating Clouds is maybe the most well-known.
It's one of the most well-known. It's definitely the most revered.
Okay.
I would say in Japan, it's probably the best known. It was a big success in its day in Japan. Like, it was an instant critical and commercial hit.
And what year was that?
1955.
Okay.
And it's an iconic work of not just Japanese, but East Asian cinema. And a lot of East Asian filmmakers today cite it as an influence. Like Wong Kar-wai has cited it as an influence, and you can very much detect its influence in films like In the Mood for Love and Ho Xiaoshen, when he was here for the New York Film Festival in 2015 with The Assassin. He did a talk on cinema, and he presented a clip from Floating Clouds. And Park Chan-wook loves Mikio Naruse. Hamaguchi speaks about Naruse's importance to his work. So, I mean, Naruse, what sort of sets him apart, he made films in a similar genre to Ozu's, right? And but Ozu's films tend to be a little more, they represent the Japanese family. So these are films that were known as kind of shoshimin eiga. They're kind of common people dramas about middle-class working people, or sometimes poor working people. Naruse and Ozu both made films about people more on the margins of society, and then also about kind of average middle-class salarymen and their families. But Naruse, what separates Naruse from Ozu is that Ozu's emphasis and representation of the Japanese family is kind of idealized and not in a negative sense, but it is somewhat sentimental. Like Ozu is someone who laments the dissolution of the Japanese family in the in this post-war era, in this time of great industrial modernist change. And then in the case of Naruse, Naruse is much less sentimental about what is happening to the Japanese family. And he sees the Japanese family as a site of exploitation,
Like fissures getting exposed in that area.
Yeah, exactly. Resentment and abuse. And so his films they tend to be more dramatic than Ozu's, albeit to a Western viewer, they're very understated, and he's known for his understatement. But they nonetheless, in terms of what happens in the movies, they're more melodrama than Ozu is. And they're more based around conflicts, and they have a visual style that is incredibly precise, but it's based around movement. And Ozu's style, which is famously precise, tends to be based more around stasis. So Naruse is known and celebrated for being one of the great orchestrators of on-screen staging and blocking of actors, and not just blocking their movements around a room, but also even the gaze of the actor. So he was very, very careful about when an actor would look down or look off, and whole key moments of his movies kind of can turn around that. And around what's not said, but what's expressed through the physicality of the performances. And he was extremely fine about it, to the point where he was able to film his actors without, he would shoot one actor, and sometimes the other actor wouldn't even be present. But he knew so well exactly what he needed from them and what he needed them to do, where he needed them to move, when they were going to look up and when they were going to look away or down or where else, that you never sense that it feels completely natural when you're watching it. But it's actually highly, it's as artificial as Hitchcock, but it never feels that way.
And he's also incredibly prolific. Right.
He was very prolific.
Made 89 films. Was that
something like that? I mean, that's what I think it's 8. Yeah, and I think it's something like 68 or 9 survive.
Oh, okay.
So we actually have a relatively representative. I mean, what's lost within that 89 are mostly his silent films. Only 5 silents survive.
And I'm like, one thing interesting, I think of in this like film programming time is just to think about, like, as programmers, like, if with somebody else's series even, or whether, like, what's it like to be, are you revisiting these movies on your laptop, on, at home, and then always thinking about, well, this is for a movie going experience. Like, how do you
I hate watching. I hate watching movies on my computer, so I try to limit the occasions where I have to, because sometimes you just have to watch something. You're on a clock. You have a link that will expire at a certain point. But I try to, even with the links I get to plug my computer into my television at home, I have a nice big TV, and like watch that way. For programming, a lot of it is just the knowledge you already have. And even if it's not films that you've already seen, it might be films and filmmakers you're aware of. You are aware of their place within film history. I think most programmers I know have a lot of books, so like film history books and stuff like that. So it- you have some resources to pull from, and then of course there's the internet. So you can do some quick and dirty research. You can also do a little bit more in-depth research. You can go to the library, which whenever I have time, I try to do. If I'm working on a series that is more intensive like that, and usually it's these series like Soul and Soil, like the Naruse, that are the more intensive ones. These are the ones that really take a more like scholarly level of investment in what you're doing, because you're presenting work that even you may not know very much about.
And then what's it
Relatively
like, or
speaking.
what's your um, sort of routine for, you've spent all this time, months or a year preparing a series, and
Yeah.
then it hits.
Yeah.
Are you sitting down with the crowd, the moviegoers in every time one of these films is screening? Like, how does that work?
Well, I mean, so it depends on the program. There are some programs, again, which we're turning them around really quickly. From concept to production, from concept to research to booking and production, we're turning it around rather quickly. And those are the series that we're doing because we need to have good programming. And like Memory Palace, again, an idea I've had for years. It did not actually take very long to put that list together, probably because I've been thinking about it for so long, but then also to make it happen. And it's a thematic program, so it's not really it isn't one of these more demanding uh programs to put together. But for something, and so in that case, especially because it's like I'm showing a lot of work that I have seen before, and most of which I've seen in a theater before. I'm not necessarily, like I'm probably not going to see every movie in that program again. I'll probably see maybe 2 or 3 films in that program that I'm excited to see in a print. I'm really excited that, for instance, we're showing Ho Xiaoshen's Time to Live, Time to Die, and Dust in the Wind on 35. That's very rare, especially today when those films are more typically screened digitally. But even then, those films aren't screened very often. I think it's probably been about 10 years since either film has screened, maybe 8 or 9. And so that's an occasion where I'm going to be there with the audience. For something like Naruse, I went to every film that I programmed there, because to see those films on 35 is a real treat. And it's not something that happens, not something that happens often. I mean, this is something
You
that
can't
happens.
program for yourself to project.
Well, it also just only, in the case of certain filmmakers and certain films, we're now at a point with digital restoration and digitization of materials where this might be the last time that those prints are as a group shown. Maybe they'll be rented here and there, but I don't know that. It had been about 20 years since the last major Naruse retrospective. And here and there, some Naruse films have shown, and some of those prints have been imported back into the country as part of other programs. But this 30-film retrospective carried by 2 organizations, all on film, 20 years from now, is that going to happen again? I don't know. I don't know if those prints will be available 20 years from now.
And then, how much of your, I guess it would be part of the work life, or just, how much are you going to other theaters series? How much are you like putting those on your calendar and trying to get to, like?
A lot.
A lot.
Yeah, I love going to the movies. I think it's really important as a programmer not to become too worn out by the fact that it's your job.
Yeah.
I try to go to the movies a lot. Uh, I'm I mean I'm very happy that this is a city filled with like wonderful theaters and wonderful programmers, and there's never a dull moment. There's always something I'm excited to catch and try to make. Yeah, like I mean, right now Anthology is doing a Robert Downey
Right.
Senior series, and there's a lot of rare stuff in there, including their new preservation of Greaser's Palace. And I got to see that last week, and that was awesome.
Yeah.
And um, Francisco Valente at MoMA did this really like monumental series on João Cesar Monteiro, the great Portuguese filmmaker. I've been trying to see some of those, and yeah, I mean, New York's a very rich territory for
even
film programming.
like, what's your, the mind like in terms of being a revival, repertory programmer, and then wanting do try like what is the instinct for new cinema or to pull some like, you can only see so much.
Well, I'm really interested in new films too, and again we show a lot of contemporary cinema. So every calendar we do some new release runs. We do some special engagements of newer films, and we do series based around films that are coming out, and we do repertory programming of more recent or contemporary films and filmmakers. So, for instance, I think 2 calendars back, or 1 calendar back, we did a small survey of films by Olivier Assayas. Olivier Assayas is he's a middle-aged filmmaker in his prime. So, that's not, it's repertory in the sense that the films we showed are mostly films that he made in years past. But it was organized around the fact that his latest film, Suspended Time, was about to release.
Yeah.
So that's why we did it when we did it. So you have to stay abreast.
Yeah.
And film history isn't.
Is part of your job going to, new, going to on the festival circuit?
Yeah. So I try to go to a couple film festivals a year. This year I went to TIFF, and that is the moment where you catch up.
Yeah.
And where you see the films that are going to be important for the next 6 to even 12 months, because a lot of films from this year aren't going to release until next year.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then what about just like your personal taste? Like what's the, 2 or 3 movies that you come back to a lot, or that you still feel are representative of kind of, without calling them like favorites, the ones that still mean a lot to you?
Well, there's a lot more than 2 or 3.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. There are some filmmakers who are particularly important to me. So I'll go with filmmakers rather than movies, if that's okay. Ho Xiaoshen is just, for me, the great filmmaker of our time. And whenever I get a chance to revisit one of his movies, it's very meaningful.
Do you remember what film was your entry to it, Matt?
I think the first one I saw was Boys from Feng Kuei.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Which is not his first movie, but is sort of the first movie in his personal style that he made. And so Ho Xiaoshen is very, very important to me. 2 of his films I mentioned earlier are part of Memory Palace. So Dust in the Wind and Time to Live, Time to Die. Another filmmaker that I just will, you know, always go back to, and there's always more to see because he made so many films, is Stan Brakhage.
Okay.
So, I've seen hundreds of Brakhage films, and yet there's still hundreds I haven't seen.
Yeah.
They're like endlessly inspiring because there's always some aspect of his work. He went in so many directions over decades. He started making films as a teenager, and he was making films from the mid 50s to the early 2000s from his deathbed, or from his hospital bed, as he was dying.
And is there one film you find recommending the most from his work, or a collection of his?
Criterion
Right.
Collection has a 2-volume Brakhage Blu-ray
Yeah.
set.
I mean, that's sort of what I'm most familiar with, beyond
Yeah.
like what I saw kind of
Yeah.
in film school or film classes,
Yeah, there's also a Blu-ray. Some of the others have been put out on Blu-ray or DVD here and there. Anticipation of the Night, this kind of really major early work from the late 50s. That's a really great film that I think more people should see. And it is somewhat accessible. And then third, I'll mention someone contemporary, someone who's like on my mind these days, is Paul Thomas Anderson, because I thought One Battle After Another was really extraordinary. I mean, kind of astonishing, really. It's so exciting that we have a guy like that.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, just because I am at, like part of the life of a programmer, people must ask you for recommendations all the time. Do you find you have a few films, like if somebody,
Like at the ready.
yeah, like kind of at the ready, or, both for, let's say somebody, you have somebody's kind of a more of a populist film goer, doesn't, kind of
Sure.
have the, but you can see there's an interest there of cinephilia or something. Like, what's the recommendation you think you find putting out there?
I mean, usually I'm asked for recs in the context of actually what we're showing.
Yeah.
So I'll often reach for like the most accessible thing that I know we've got coming up. If it's someone who's not like,
Right.
they're not initiated yet, right?
So
like
what would that be in the Memory Palace?
like Dazed and Confused is in Memory Palace, right?
Right.
That's like one of the greatest American movies ever. It's also a movie that anyone can enjoy.
Oh yeah.
Right. Recently, this weekend, we were showing Charlie Varick in our Don Siegel retrospective. And that's a very easy film to recommend to people because it's a caper film. It's a film. And, lately I've had a lot of people ask me what was my favorite film of the year, or that yada, yada, yada. And the great thing about this new PTA movie is that it's not The Master, right? It's a PTA movie that I could recommend to anybody. And that I have, like, I've been telling my cousins who are,
Right.
to go see it. I've been telling friends of mine who are not film friends to go see it, because it's a film that I think has some quite profound things to that it's working through, politically, personally, but at the same time, it's a total crowd pleaser.
Oh yeah.
It's hilarious, and it's kinetic, and it's
Kind of undeniable on like so many levels. I feel like that, whether it's just for the filmmaking, or if it's just for one of the performances. Yeah. It's a pretty singular. I've only seen it once. I look forward to going back more.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think we covered a lot. Thanks so much for joining me. It's incredible to get out to the Metrograph, and look forward to some of these next series.
Yeah, thank you for paying us a visit.